Karen pretends to be the owner's wife, but I'm the owner. I am an 18-year-old male. My parents own a little restaurant where we sell snacks, cakes, candies, and various fast foods. It was named after my grandparents, so let's call it Joe's. Whenever I get free time, I usually hang out with my friends to have something. I do pay, which also encourages my friends to pay too, which I earn by working at Joe's, especially on weekends, as it becomes a bit busy then, like serving people or taking orders from them. And yes, we do have employees. My dad allows me to keep the tip money that the customers give after eating, and my dad also pays me for the hours I work. Now, on to the story. Very few of the regular customers know I am the son of the owner and my parents. The owners also work there themselves, but people often tend to think of them as employees. One day on a weekend, a woman, I don't know, might be in her 30s or 40s. I'm not good at guessing age, entered with her bratty kid, who I suppose was around 13 or so. Now, as it was a weekend, it was a little bit busy. She was told to sit on one of the waiting chairs. Around 20 minutes or so, a table was ready for her. She sat there, and I went to ask for her orders. Now, I don't exactly remember what she ordered. It might have been a sandwich or so, and I went to the kitchen to give the order. Now I was just standing near the register to look for if someone needed anything, and her bratty kid was running around screaming, running into people, stepping on people's feet, and even touching their food. The mother, as usual, didn't seem to care and was on her phone. I was very annoyed by this, and I held the kid by his hand while he was running and told him not to run around. In a pretty harsh voice, the kid started crying and ran back to his mother. Her mother fumed by this and came to me stomping. This is how the conversation went as far as I remember.
How dare you touch my child?
Me. He was running around and was annoying other people. Didn't you see he was touching others' food?
Well, he's a child. He can do whatever he wants to do.
Me. Yeah, not in my supervision.
Do you even know who I am?
Me thinking, here we go again. I've read many stories like this on Reddit, but never thought something like this would ever happen to me, as I always thought people exaggerated things, but no, these were real. I knew what was going to happen, so I thought of playing along. Me? No, ma'am, I don't.
Well then, you should know I am the wife of the owner, and you have made a mistake hurting his son. I will make sure your face will never be seen here, because I'm getting you fired.
Thinking in my mind, I thought she would go for a sister or a friend, but she went for a wife, and now we're going to have some fun. Me. Ma'am, I don't think you even know his. She cuts me off.
His name is Charles.
My dad's name. I was quite shocked that she knew my dad's name. Very few people know that anyway. Me. Ma'am, I'm very sorry that I acted rude toward your son, but please don't get me fired. It's the only job I have.
You should have thought about that before you hit my son.
Me. But ma'am, he was Anne. She again cuts me off.
Shut up!
She went to the register and asked for the manager. My dad came out and talked to her about what happened.
Your employee has been harassing my son. I want him to be fired now.
My dad looked at me, giving a light smile in his eyes. I'm sorry for the inconvenience, but I just can't fire him without any reason.
Do you even know who you're talking to? I'm the wife of the owner of Joe's, and I can't stand the employees hitting my son.
Dad having the biggest grin on his face.
Why are you laughing? I'm serious.
I'm again saying I'm sorry for the inconvenience caused. And would you like to have a refund?
You know what I'm calling my husband and complaining about you and your employee? I will get both of you fired.
Now the way she got my dad's number is because we had it on our board outside, as we gave home delivery so people would order on call. And you got it. I'm not gonna explain that. She called the number, and my dad's phone rang. Karen was shocked. He picked up the phone and said,
Hello, this is Charles Joe, the owner of Joe's. How can I help you?
Karen's face went red to completely white as if blood had drained from her. He then said,
Yes, I am the owner and manager of Joe's, and you are in no way my wife. And the employee you want to be fired is my son.
She looked at me, and I just couldn't hold back my laugh anymore. Just then, her order was ready, but by then, she was already embarrassed enough, with her kid crying in the background the whole time. She dragged her crying kid by the arm, didn't even take the order, and we still have a great laugh about it. What if the OP took the prank to a limit and started shouting something to the effect of, Mom, you finally came home, then tried hugging her while faking tears of joy, and speak even louder, "Oh, I even have a little brother. Is he a half-brother? Or were you pregnant by dad when you left?" I can't even imagine what turn this story would have taken that way, but the ending was well suited to the situation. My mother thinks she's entitled to alcohol at my wedding. My fiancé, 35M, and I, 33, are getting married in 2 weeks in our backyard. We will be having a catering spread for our reception afterward. We decided to have a dry wedding for 2 reasons. 1, my mom is an alcoholic who is known for making a scene when she gets drunk, and my fiancé has a brother who binge drinks and has had alcohol poisoning on more than one occasion. He doesn't drink all the time, but if he starts, he can't stop until he either passes out or someone physically restrains him from getting more. 2, I also have an uncle and a stepdad who are in recovery and don't need the temptation. Neither fiancé and I are big drinkers, so we decided just to avoid any problems and just have a dry wedding. We will have a less dry reception party with some of our friends later on. All of our families have been supportive. My uncle was incredibly grateful to us for doing this since he takes his recovery very seriously and has been 7 years sober. I sent out wedding invitations 4 months ago and said it would be a dry wedding and asked people not to bring alcohol. Today I got this call from my mom, whom I also sent an invitation 4 months ago.
Is it true you're not having alcohol at your wedding?
Me, yes. My fiancé and I decided we didn't want alcohol during our special time.
That's so silly. It's going to make your wedding boring.
Me, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, but my fiancé and I have decided we want everyone to feel comfortable at our wedding.
Clearly, you don't care about my comfort. What if I want to have a little drink to pass the time?
Me, like you did at Uncle Tom's wedding where you got so drunk and made a horrible scene calling Uncle's wife a gold digger.
It wasn't my fault. They made the drinks there too strong.
Me, right. I really wish you would address this need to have alcohol wherever you go.
I don't need to have alcohol. I just think your wedding will be boring without it. You want to have a fun wedding, don't you?
Me, it will be a fun wedding. We don't need alcohol to have fun.
This is so stupid. Why should everyone else be punished just to make it comfortable for a few people? You seem to care more about your uncle and stepdad than anyone else.
Me, or maybe I just want to avoid any scenes.
I just told you that wasn't my fault.
Me, just like your divorce isn't your fault.
How dare you bring up that difficult time in my life? I was going through a lot emotionally. What the hell is wrong with you kids? You need to mind your own business. If I want a drink, that's my business.
Me, well, my wedding is my business. We do not want alcohol there. That's final. I can't stop you if you decide to pre-game my wedding, but I've already made it clear to everyone that if you cause a scene, you are to be made to leave. Starts crying.
Why do you kids hate me so much? What did I ever do to deserve to be treated like this by my children?
Me, are you really ready for me to go down that list?
None of you understand. None of you will ever understand. I'm the mother of the bride. I should be treated better than this.
Me, I think I've treated you pretty well during this process. I've consented to your boyfriend, whom I don't even know, coming to my wedding. I've even given in to some of your other demands, so please tell me how you've been mistreated.
You didn't invite me to go dress shopping. The mother of the bride always goes dress shopping with her daughter. I barely know your fiancé because you never bring him around me. How do I know that you're marrying the right person?
Me, that's because Aunt Sophie made my dress.
Well, isn't that just special?
Me, sighing. As for the rest, I think you know why. We aren't really close enough for you to have any say in who my significant other is. Honestly, Mom, I'm done with this conversation. If you really feel it strongly about this, I'll understand if you don't want to attend my wedding.
Oh, I bet you'd like that, wouldn't you? One way or another, you will respect me as your mother.
Me, sure, Mom. I'm hanging up now. Bye. Guys, I'm so livid right now. I have half a mind to uninvite her. I spoke to my dad and her brother. My uncle thinks her drinking is getting really bad again and wants to hold an intervention. I told him I was focused on the wedding right now, but that I agreed this was out of line and something needed to be done. However, I sent a text to my mom reiterating the rules. She said she knew where she wasn't welcome and said she wouldn't attend. My dad told me not to worry about this anymore and that he'll see to it that she doesn't ruin my wedding. So, the text that I sent to her says something like this: Mother, at this point, I'm going to officially uninvite you from my wedding. I'm not going to allow you to change your mind, and I'd prefer it if you did not come to my wedding at all, given your poor behavior. At this point, I decided I don't want any further contact with you unless you curb your toxic behaviors in drinking. I wish you the best. I hope you can find a way to heal, but I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry if this hurts you, but I can't handle you anymore. If you try to force the issue, I'll be forced to take legal action, including contacting law enforcement. Please don't contact me again. I went to delete her from my Facebook page only to find a post that she had just written saying how being a mother is a thankless job and how she doesn't understand how she raised rude and judgmental kids. She ended it by saying she hopes her kids get over themselves someday. I'm done. This sucks, but it's been a long time coming. My head hurts. So, what I think is that OP's mother is likely to get too drunk before the wedding under the excuse of not being able to drink there, and then she'll cause a scene during OP's vows or something. Then she will blame the OP for making her drink beforehand, and thus would never have happened if you just served alcohol. Since she won't take any responsibility for her own behavior, I think OP would feel better by not having her there. OP's day will be happier for it, but she might well just show up anyway. We hope the best for this young OP and move on to our next story of a naval officer. Naval officer didn't want to live with enlisted, gets fired. So this happened about 1.5 years ago, but I recently heard the news on how far my revenge went, so I thought why not share it with you guys. I was a Navy enlisted service member and was stationed in Yokosuka, Japan for a few years before I got transferred back stateside. I worked in the main hospital that cared for service members and their beneficiaries. It's a small hospital, so everyone knows everyone. Shortly after I left, I caught wind of a new physician officer working in the radiology department. My friends would say he's horrible to work with, but that's nothing new. However, someone saw him print a letter, and he left it on his desk and took a picture of it and sent it to me. He's requesting to move from enlisted housing to officer. I found out it's not a private letter. He did actually send it to housing, and most of the housing is run by enlisted members. For context, military housing is available for those who are married, have a family, or are qualified based on their rank and depending on the military base itself. Typically, officer housing is much nicer than the enlisted. In Yokosuka, housing is basically the same all around because it's overseas. But most of the housing are apartments, and each apartment complex is called a tower. For example, Fuji Tower. There are 9 towers and 2 are for officers since enlisted members outnumber officers by a lot. Now, one thing about the military, shit happens. When getting stationed, it is the active duty member's responsibility to apply for housing on or off base before arriving, depending on what is allowed. If there is limited space and you don't apply for housing on time, you get put where there is space. So, our new officer got placed in an enlisted tower. Mind you, enlisted members have families of their own, and other officers have been placed in enlisted housing before without an issue. Here are some quotes in his letter. And yes, this guy has a PhD. I have many valid objections to living in a building of almost all enlisted, and even many lower enlisted being an officer. There is a lot of crime, violent actions, drug use, and alcoholism that happen in enlisted housing. There are also sexual assaults and other perverts. I have a good-looking family, a wife, and 2 daughters, ages 3 and 4. They are prime targets to be victims of these enlisted deviant activities. My family should be safe in housing, that is, with officers. Officers are much more respectable, and these types of deviant activities are incredibly rare compared to the deviant activities of enlisted being commonplace. Other officer families will not want to visit us because our family lives in enlisted housing. My children need to make friends with other officer children. My wife needs to make friends with other officers' wives. I need to make friends with other officers. Forcing an officer to live in a large apartment building with almost all enlisted is unethical. You get the idea. So this guy basically looks down on all enlisted service members, assuming every single one is a drug user, pervert, pedo, criminal, etc. The kicker? He was an enlisted Army member before going to officer school. In civilian terms, think of a manager who discriminates and calls all of his subordinates criminals, violent, alcoholics, drug users, etc., based on your job position. Forgetting that some have a family and, maybe aren't any of those things. He not only has the authority to ruin your work life, but he can ruin your personal life, do not accept days off, make you stay late, write you up if he doesn't like you, and not let you promote. Safe to say, everyone was pissed, and I have nothing to lose. I was separating soon and figured I'd have some fun before I got out. I created a burner Facebook account and posted the letter and the officer's picture on a popular military enlisted group page. Within 2 days, it spread like wildfire, but I wasn't done yet. The military has something called challenge coins. Think of trading cards but custom coins that come in many shapes and sizes. I designed one with his face and a big middle finger in the back. On top of that, I designed stickers to show how proud we deviants are. Other coin designs came from other people as well, but so far, I think mine was more popular. I sold over 70 coins to the person who originally sent me the picture at a huge discounted price so she could sell them for a profit for herself. So the officer's face is everywhere because most people display their coins on their desks. No matter where the officer went to work, he would see his face on someone's desk. And since it didn't have his name on the coin, some can't officially say it's him. I sold more stateside, and even some got sent to Europe. I made about $3,000 overall, which was nice. The story even got featured in the online naval newspaper and on 2 popular YouTube channels. And if you're military, you know the only time big military care is when it's too big to sweep under the rug. This story got the officer sent up to captain's mast, like a Navy court. He tried to say his wife was the one who wrote the letter, but no one was buying it because her writing style was way worse. She even tried to take the fall, but no one believed her. They both ended up deleting all social media. Due to this, he got served 3 UCMG articles which basically are his offenses. But there's more. When you're in the military, you have a deadline on how long you can be a certain rank. If you don't pick up, then you're kicked out. And because he's new and got served UCMG articles, he won't be up for promotion and therefore was involuntarily separated. Also, the officer program he went through pays for his PhD. When the military pays for your PhD, you have to serve 10 years to pay them back. If you go complete 10 years, you have to pay the military back with money instead of time. So he lost his job and now has to pay back the military for his PhD. And since it takes a while for the paperwork to have him and his family sent back stateside, you can bet he socially suffered because no one worked with him. To me, a naval officer sounds like an out-of-touch freak, but I think it's kind of the worst thing to ruin his career and life. Selling coins with his face, etc., is just as toxic as the letter he wrote. I get it's cool to shit on officers, but this is some random officer with a lack of self-awareness. Probably going to have severe issues for a while that will adversely hurt his kids and spouse.